When I found out for the second time that the IVF baby in my belly was actually an embryo created by my husband and his new whore, I didn't go completely fucking insane and violently abort it like I did before. Instead, I chose to play the good little wife. I nourished the pregnancy and gave birth to it. Since then, I became the juiciest gossip in the upper class circles, single-handedly keeping thousands of tabloid media outlets in business. Every cheating billionaire wished they could meet a saintly, tolerant legal wife like me. Every homewrecking slut in our social circle burned incense. They could seduce my husband. The elite wives of the mega-rich simply viewed me as a pathetic, spineless disgrace until after 10 months of carrying the burden, I safely delivered the baby. The moment I was pushed out of the delivery room, Preston kissed me gently on the forehead. Just like the old days. Lexi is terrified of the pain and you can't get pregnant anymore. Anyway, it's perfect that you could carry our baby for us, he murmured. Don't worry, Scarlett. She only wants to be a mother. She will never shake your status as the Mrs. Sterling. You are the one I will always love, everyone said. The only reason I did this was because I loved Preston Sterling, to the point of sickness that since I couldn't beat the mistress, I could only join them. But only I knew the truth. This was the child grandmother Sterling forced me to bear, to repay her for saving my life years ago. Now the Sterling family's eldest son had landed on Earth. And the divorce agreement she promised me was finally going to take effect. The anesthesia from the C-section wore off and a sharp, tearing agony woke me from my stupor. As soon as I opened my eyes, Preston was holding the baby, his face glowing with pure joy. Baby grandmother has already picked a name for our son. Just sign here and we can get him on the family register. He handed me the birth certificate, staring at the name Harrison Sterling printed on the paper. My groggy brain cleared in a split second. Harrison, a name meaning son of strength and original purity. That was the beautiful vision I had for my own unborn biological son. It was our hope for our love. And more importantly, it was the name written in the Sterling family tree. For the 13th generation, eldest heir. Back then, to save Preston from kidnappers, I took a knife to the gut for him, ruining my body and making it nearly impossible to ever conceive. Later, our first real IVF baby was forced into a late-term miscarriage. I had caught him fucking my illegitimate half-sister, Lexi, in our marital bed. In the chaos, he pushed me. I bled out and labor was induced. It had been a fully formed, perfect little boy after I recovered from that traumatic loss. I prepared to set up a memorial headstone for him in the family mausoleum. But the family spiritual advisor claimed the baby didn't make it to full term. So the timing was bad and we had to wait. I had waited for over a year during my pregnancy with this new bastard. Preston had begged to give the name Harrison to this little shit. I never agreed, but now looking at the expectant, loving gleam in his eyes, I just felt sick over all the tears I had shed for him. I knew damn well grandmother didn't pick this name. Lexi just loved stealing everything that was mine. She had blown her bullshit pillow talk into Preston's ears. Whatever. The divorce was already set in stone. Who cared about this deadbeat dad's surname anymore? Whatever. Call him whatever the hell you want, I said weakly. I only have one condition. Do not put me down as the mother. My real son's spirit in heaven would be thoroughly disgusted. Preston froze, a flash of guilt crossing his eyes. Scarlett, please don't worry. I only used her half of the. Come look at my baby. Grandmother. Sterling was mercilessly beating her with her heavy wooden cane. Get the fuck out. In that instant, Preston jumped like a frightened bird. without even waiting to hand the baby to the nurse. He carelessly tossed the newborn onto my chest and sprinted out the door. My freshly stitched surgical wound was crushed, ripping open under the sudden impact. A piercing, bone-deep agony tore through me, and I screamed out loud. But he acted like he couldn't hear a damn thing. Running right past me, he threw himself down without hesitation, shielding Lexi with his own body against the old lady's cane. The way he fiercely protected her made the comforting words he had just whispered to me look hilariously pathetic. Grandmother, it was my idea. I did it for the Sterling family. Don't hurt innocent people. Old Mrs. Sterling paused, instinctively looking toward my bed. Seeing the pristine white sheets rapidly soaking with dark red blood, she slammed her cane straight down onto Preston's back. You fucking animal. Her stitches aren't even healed. How could she hold the baby? Panic and immediate regret flooded Preston's eyes. He made a move to rush back to me. But right behind him, Lexi dramatically swooned, collapsing straight onto the floor. He panicked, cooping her up in his arms, turning to run. Grandmother Sterling blocked his path with a lethal glare. Don't you dare leave. Your wife is bleeding out in there. Do you even want this family anymore? Preston's eyes swam with hesitation. I do, but she was beaten by you. She's injured. Can't just leave her. Scarlett. Scarlett has you. She'll be entirely fine. Once upon a time, he used to shield me under his umbrella like this. Once upon a time, he never made me the choice. That was abandoned. I endured the excruciating pain and cast a cold, detached glance at him. Grandmother let him go. He seemed shocked by my generosity. In the past, I had discarded every last ounce of my dignity. His expression was complicated. He opened his mouth to say something, but eventually turned and strode quickly down the hall. The nurses and postpartum doulas rushed in to clean up my torn stitches and calm the crying baby. My phone suddenly lit up with a text from him. I forgot your stitches were fresh. I'm sorry. I just didn't want an ugly scene at the hospital. It would ruin the Sterling family's reputation. Lexi is still unconscious. She can't be left alone. So I won't be coming back tonight. Get some good rest. I stared at the glowing screen for a long time. I remembered when he found out I had sprained my ankle. He took an 11-hour flight just to hold my hand during an X-ray. He used to guard me like my shadow. Seeing my heavy sigh, Grandmother Sterling snatched the phone from my hand. She glared at the cold, clinical words and scoffed. That ungrateful bastard. Wait until he gets home. I'll show him hell, Scarlett. Don't worry, Grandmother will. Hearing this, I suddenly laughed, looking at her with absolute deadpan calm. You tacitly approved of all of this, didn't you? I don't care what he does anymore. You promised me before, once I gave birth to this child, you would help me process the divorce. I hope you are a woman of your word. Her face stiffened, thick, heavy guilt pooling in her aged eyes. It is Grandmother who failed you. I've already tricked him into signing the divorce papers, disguised as trust funds. Just finish your 30 days of luxury, postpartum recovery and peace, and then you can leave. Grandmother took the baby to be raised by her own hand-picked nannies. I checked into a high-end postnatal clinic, under the guise of resting perfectly, dodging the paparazzi. But that very night, the scandal of the Sterling heir abandoning his postpartum wife swept through the billionaire business circles like wildfire. The Sterling Group stock plummeted steadily, and Preston was drowning in corporate fires. Lexi's lifestyle influencer accounts were swarmed and destroyed by angry netizens. Scandal I had personally exposed months ago was dragged completely back into the light. The platforms were overflowing with hate comments. The next time I saw him was 7 days later. The first thing he did when he walked in was look at me with profound disappointment. Scarlett, retaliating against us like this. Does it finally make you happy? I blinked momentarily, stunned before I realized he was pinning the blame entirely on me. It made sense. I used to be a high-level media director. Pulling strings behind the scenes was my specialty. Too bad the first time I went rogue and exposed his affair with Lexi. He used invasion of privacy and defamation as leverage to force my company to fire me. Finding someone to do my dirty work now would actually be pretty damn hard. I scoffed, tossing a sideways glance at him. The urge to cry and defend myself against his misunderstandings had died a long time ago. At polishing the silver urn charm I had bought for my dead baby's anniversary. You should know better. The dirty shit you two have done isn't limited to what's floating around online. If I actually wanted to expose you, your wallet would be bleeding a hell of a lot more. Stood frozen in the doorway for a long time. Then with a weary, almost helpless sigh, he spoke. After this blows over, I'll cut ties with her. But you have to promise me we'll live a good life from now on. Okay? Now that we have a child, we can be a happy family. Shit. He had fed me that exact line almost every single day of my pregnancy. And it never stopped him from secretly rolling around in the sheets with Lexi. Either he felt sorry for her because she was a bastard child, or he felt she was too lonely without family to rely on. In short, he always found 10,000 excuses to justify why he couldn't control his dick around her. Why treating her like a queen was his sworn duty. He stood stubbornly by the door, acting like he wouldn't leave until I gave him an answer. Blocking my sunlight. I gave him a half-assed hum of agreement just to get rid of him. It wasn't until the next morning, when a deep-fake sex tape of me cheating went viral, that I finally understood what he meant by, after this blows over, Preston had released a PR video. In the video, he looked into the cameras with heart-wrenching grief. He claimed, I was the one who had been caught having a wild affair while pregnant. He claimed my sister had discovered my dirty secret and to silence her, I had maliciously spread false rumors about him. The bright blue glow of the tablet illuminated my face in the dimly lit recovery room. I watched the video again. It was a masterpiece of digital assassination. The woman on the screen had my face, my exact birthmark on her left collarbone, and my voice, moaning beneath a faceless man in a cheap motel room. The internet was tearing me apart piece by piece. Disgusting whore. Preston gave her everything and she cheated while carrying the sterling heir. No wonder the baby had to be IVF, she probably gave herself an infection sleeping around. Justice for Lexi. Her own sister tried to ruin her just to cover up her own tracks. My phone buzzed. It was Preston. I had to do it, Scarlett. The board was threatening to vote me out. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Just lay low. Don't talk to the press. We'll send you to Switzerland for a few months until the internet forgets. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. The searing pain in my freshly torn C-section stitches served as a physical anchor, grounding me in a reality that was colder and sharper than ice. He actually thought I was still the woman who would swallow glass just to keep him from bleeding. I hit reply. Okay. I understand. Then, I turned off the tablet, poured myself a glass of warm water, and drank it slowly. I needed to heal. Every drop of blood I had left in my body was going to be required for the slaughter I was about to unleash. Day 15 of postpartum confinement. My physical recovery was miraculous, fueled by a terrifying, hollow calm. Grandmother Sterling had kept her word. The postnatal clinic was a fortress, impenetrable to the paparazzi swarming outside. I spent my days sitting by the window, a burner phone pressed to my ear. Before Preston had me blacklisted from the industry, I wasn't just a media director, I was the apex predator of high society public relations. I knew where every skeleton was buried, and more importantly, I knew the hackers and digital forensic experts who dug the graves. It cost him a cool $3 million, a distorted voice crackled through the burner phone. It was Viper, a freelance cyber sleuth I used to hire to scrub corporate scandals. The deepfake was commissioned through a proxy server in Macau, but the crypto wallet traces straight back to a shell company owned by Lexi's mother. And get this, the original source code has an audio artifact. If you strip the background noise, you can hear Preston giving the director instructions in the studio. "Send it all to the encrypted drive," I said, my voice eerily steady. "I also need the security footage from the Sterling summer house from last October. The night I miscarried." There was a heavy pause on the line. "Scarlett, that footage was wiped by Sterling's head of security." "Nothing is ever truly wiped, Viper. You taught me that. Find the cloud backups. I'll pay triple your usual rate. Break into the mainframe if you have to." Done. That afternoon, the heavy oak door of my suite swung open. Lexi strolled in, wearing a vintage Chanel tweed suit and a pair of oversized sunglasses. She looked glowing, victorious, carrying a massive bouquet of white lilies, the traditional flower for funerals. "Oh, poor Scarlett," she cooed, removing her glasses. Her eyes were sharp and dancing with malice. "Look at you. Locked away like a dirty little secret. I didn't look up from my book. How did you get past security?" Preston put me on the VIP list. He said the auntie should be allowed to check on the disgraced mother. She walked over and dropped the lilies onto my bed. "He's transferring 5% of the Sterling Group shares to my name tomorrow. A reward for the trauma you put me through." "Is that so?" I turned a page. Lexi sneered, stepping closer, her voice dropping into a venomous hiss. "You really thought you could win? You carried my baby for 10 months, Scarlett. You ruined your body, you lost your reputation, and now the whole world thinks you're a cheap slut. Preston loves me. He only kept you around because the old hag liked you. Now that the heir is born, you're garbage." I finally looked up. I looked at her flawless makeup, her smug smile, the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist that I had bought for Preston's birthday 2 years ago. "Are you done?" I asked quietly. She blinked, clearly unnerved by my lack of tears. "You're crazy. You're actually psychotic. Take your flowers, Lexi," I said, my tone flat, dead. "They smell like rot. And enjoy the 5%. I hope it keeps you warm." She scoffed, turned on her heel, and marched out of the room, slamming the door. I reached beneath my pillow and pulled out the discreet digital voice recorder I had kept running since the day I checked in. I pressed save. Add it to the pile. Day 30 of postpartum confinement. My 30 days were up. The stitches had scarred over a thick, ugly, raised line across my abdomen that matched the invisible one across my heart. A black Bentley was waiting at the back entrance of the clinic. Inside sat an elderly woman with a spine made of steel and eyes like flint. Grandmother Sterling. I slid into the leather seat beside her. She handed me a thick manila envelope. "The papers are filed. The seal is absolute," she said, her voice raspy. Preston signed the trust fund documents exactly as my lawyers drafted them. He didn't even read the fine print. He gave up all marital rights, transferred his remaining liquid assets into the baby's name under my direct control, and consented to an irrevocable, immediate dissolution of the marriage. I opened the envelope. There it was. The decree absolute. I was a free woman. But freedom wasn't enough. "The board meeting is tomorrow," I said, looking out the tinted window as we drove past the paparazzi, who were completely unaware I was in the car. He's planning to officially introduce the baby to the media and announce his new initiative. Yes, grandmother said coldly. He thinks he has weathered the storm. He thinks he is untouchable. He has scheduled a massive press conference at the Sterling Grand Hotel to celebrate the Sterling heir and announce his divorce from the cheating wife. She turned to look at me, her aged hand reaching out to grip my knee with surprising strength. You suffered for this family, Scarlett. You bled for us. I could not save your first child, and for that, my soul will burn. But I will give you the knife to carve out the rot in my house. Do not hold back. I looked at the silver urn charm dangling from my bracelet. Harrison. My real Harrison. I won't, I whispered. The execution. The Sterling Grand Hotel ballroom was a sea of flashing cameras, crystal chandeliers, and the intoxicating scent of expensive perfume and old money. The press conference was broadcast live across 3 major networks and countless streaming platforms. Preston wanted the world to see his triumph. He stood at the podium looking like a tragic hero. Lexi sat in the front row, dabbing at fake tears with a silk handkerchief. It has been a difficult month for the Sterling family, Preston spoke into the microphone, his voice dripping with practiced sorrow. The betrayal of someone I loved deeply, someone I trusted to bring my child into this world, nearly broke me. But today is about the future. Today is about my son, Harrison Sterling, and the strength of the family. The crowd murmured in sympathy. Cameras snapped furiously. I have filed for divorce, Preston continued, looking stoic. And I am moving forward, supported by those who truly care for me. Especially my sister-in-law, Lexi, who has been a pillar of strength despite the vicious, false rumors my soon-to-be ex-wife spread about her. I wouldn't say soon-to-be. The voice echoed through the ballroom, amplified by the hotel's surround sound system. The cameras whipped around. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. I stood at the back of the ballroom, wearing a blood-red Alexander McQueen power suit, my hair slicked back, lips painted a deadly crimson. I didn't look like a disgraced, postpartum shut-in. I looked like an executioner. Preston's face drained of color. He gripped the edges of the podium. Scarlett? Security. Get her out of here. She's mentally unstable. 2 burly security guards lunged toward me. Touch her, and you will never work in this city again. The sharp, gravelly voice of Grandmother Sterling cut through the chaos. She emerged from the VIP elevator, leaning heavily on her cane, flanked by her own private security detail, men who answered only to the matriarch. The room went dead silent. Even the paparazzi knew better than to cross the old dragon of the Sterling Empire. I walked slowly down the center aisle, my heels clicking rhythmically against the marble floor. I stopped 10 feet from the podium. You've been telling quite a story, Preston, I said, holding up a sleek black remote control. But I think it's time we showed the audience the director's cut. I pressed the button. The massive LED screens behind Preston, which had been displaying the Sterling Group logo, flickered and went black. Then, lines of code appeared, followed by a digital receipt. Transfer, $3 million. From P. Sterling offshore account. To Deep Gen Studios, Macau. Memo, Project Scarlet Asset Creation. The crowd gasped. The journalists, smelling a Pulitzer, shoved their recorders forward. Preston stammered, his eyes darting wildly. This is forged. She's a hacker. She faked this. Oh, I'm not done, I smiled. The screen shifted. It played the raw audio file Viper had extracted. Preston's voice, make sure the birthmark on her collarbone is visible. I want it to look undeniable. If this leaks, it needs to destroy her completely so I get full custody and she gets nothing in the divorce. Pandemonium erupted. The flashes from the cameras were blinding. Lexi jumped up from her seat, her face pale. Stop this. Scarlett, you bitch, turn it off. Sit down, Lexi, your cameo is next, I snapped, my voice cracking like a whip. The screen shifted again. This was the Holy Grail. The footage Viper had dragged out of the deepest, darkest server of the Sterling estate. The date stamp in the corner read, October 14th, 11:42 p.m. The security camera footage showed the upstairs hallway of our marital home. The bedroom door was thrown open. I stumbled out, heavily pregnant, clutching my stomach. Preston came storming out after me, half-dressed. There was no audio, but the actions were universally understood. I was crying, pleading. Lexi stepped out of the bedroom behind him, wearing my silk robe. I lunged toward her in a fit of grief. And then, the moment that haunted my nightmares. Preston grabbed my shoulders and violently shoved me backward. I hit the marble edge of the staircase. I tumbled down, step by agonizing step. At the bottom, a dark, terrifying pool of blood began to spread across the white floor. On the screen, Preston didn't run to me. He turned to comfort Lexi, who was covering her mouth in shock. They left me there bleeding for 12 agonizing minutes before the housekeeper found me and called an ambulance. The ballroom was paralyzed by the horror of the silent movie. Several reporters covered their mouths. Some were openly weeping. That. I pointed to the screen, my hand trembling not from sorrow, but from unadulterated rage. That is the night my husband killed my son. My real son. The baby he forced into a late-term miscarriage so he could continue fucking my sister in my bed. Turn it off. Preston screamed, his voice breaking into a hysterical pitch. He lunged at the AV cables, trying to rip them out of the wall, but grandmother's guards restrained him. Lexi was hyperventilating, backing away toward the emergency exit. It was an accident. He didn't mean to. She attacked me, she wailed, her influencer persona shattering into millions of irredeemable pieces. And finally, I said, turning my back on them and facing the sea of reporters. I pulled the decree absolute from my designer bag and held it high. Preston Sterling didn't file for divorce. We are already divorced. He signed the papers 3 weeks ago, completely unaware, because he was too busy trying to destroy my life to read the documents his grandmother handed him. Preston froze in the arms of the security guards. He looked at Grandmother Sterling, his eyes wide with betrayal. Grandmother, what did you do? Old Mrs. Sterling stepped forward. Her presence was terrifying. She didn't look at Preston with anger, only with the cold, clinical detachment of a butcher examining a diseased slab of meat. I protected the Sterling legacy, she said, her voice carrying to the very back of the room. You are a disgrace, Preston. You killed my great-grandson. You tortured the woman who took a knife for you. You dragged our family name through the mud for a cheap thrill. She turned to the press. As of this morning, Preston Sterling is permanently removed from the position of CEO of the Sterling Group. He has been stripped of his voting shares. The shares he attempted to transfer to his mistress, Lexi, are null and void, as he no longer possessed them at the time of transfer. The child, Harrison, will be raised under my guardianship. Preston is entirely cut off from the family trust. You can't do this. Preston roared, fighting like a wild animal. I'm your grandson. I'm the heir. You are nothing, Grandmother said softly. Throw him out. The guards dragged Preston toward the exit. He was screaming my name, crying, begging. Lexi tried to run out the side door, but she was immediately swarmed by a mob of reporters, their microphones practically shoved down her throat as they demanded answers about the deep fake, the affair, the murder of my unborn child. I stood in the center of the chaos, the flashing lights washing over me. I looked at the screen, which had frozen on the image of me lying at the bottom of the stairs. I did it, my little one, I thought, touching the silver urn charm. Mommy burned their world to ash. The aftermath, 6 months later. The fall of Preston Sterling was a masterclass in spectacular ruin. Without the protection of the Sterling family lawyers and billions, he was thrown to the wolves. The police opened a criminal investigation into the deepfake, a federal crime. Facing 5 to 10 years for cyberfraud, defamation, and extortion, Preston cracked. He tried to flee the country on a commercial flight to non-extradition territory but was arrested at JFK Airport, sobbing uncontrollably in a pair of cheap sweatpants. Lexi's fate was a different kind of hell. Sued into oblivion by the brands she used to represent for breach of morality clauses, she was left penniless. Preston, trying to save himself, testified that Lexi was the mastermind behind the deepfake and the PR smear campaign. They turned on each other like starved rats in a cage. The last I heard, she was working as a hostess at a mid-tier casino in Atlantic City, her face heavily altered by cheap, botched fillers in a desperate attempt to avoid being recognized by people who despised her. As for me, I didn't take a dime of Preston's money. I didn't need it. The morning after the press conference, every major media conglomerate in the country offered me an executive position. I started my own PR firm, Vanguard Crisis Management. Within 6 months, we were the most feared and respected agency in the nation. Billionaires paid me exorbitant retainers not just to fix their messes, but to ensure I was never hired by their enemies. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I finally made the trip to the Sterling family mausoleum. Grandmother Sterling had granted me exclusive access. The marble floors echoed with the sound of my footsteps. I walked past generations of Sterlings until I reached a small, newly carved alcove. Harrison. Beloved son. Pure of heart. He finally had his name. He finally had his resting place. I set down a bouquet of blue hydrangeas, his would-be nursery colors. I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the day I woke up from that C-section. Instead, I felt a profound, settling peace. The heavy, suffocating weight I had carried in my chest for over a year had finally evaporated. I traced the engraved letters of his name with a gloved finger. "Sleep well, my love," I whispered into the quiet stone hall. I turned and walked out of the mausoleum. The storm outside was clearing, the gray clouds parting to let a brilliant, piercing ray of sunlight hit the wet pavement. I opened my umbrella, not to shield myself from the rain, but to step confidently into the light. I had played the good little wife. I had played the pathetic victim. Now, I was simply Scarlet. And I was untouchable.